Hello everyone, back tuning into today's video. Going to have a look at whether it's week to 10 days in today's video. It's going to take us more or less to the end of November. We'll be going to the 27th of the month with this update, so pretty much towards the end of November. Been quite an interesting autumn. This one started off very hot in September, and it's finishing up on quite a coolish note for November, although we haven't seen a really wintry outbreak yet, and we may not do, but it's certainly, I think, going to turn out to be a bit cooler than average this November, which is in contrast to what we've seen over the past few years in November. I'll talk you through the next week, 10 days in a moment. We'll start off by having a look at the unsettled weather coming up at the weekend. Looks very disturbed for the southern part of the country over this weekend. I'll show you the detail on that in a second. Before I get on with that, just say about the ads. There's links to articles on all the pages. If you have a browse widgets and click through the links, you'll be helping us to pay for our website. Thanks so much to you, man. Also, the Chris Shop is open, so if you've got any Chris Shop to do at Amazon between now and Christmas, click the green button that says Chris's Shop, and that will take you to our Chris's shop page, and then when you get there, you'll be greeted by some snowflakes. You'll also be greeted by the Amazon banners. You click through those, go to Amazon, and because you're going from Gazovids to Amazon, we get a revenue thing on the items that you are purchasing. Big thank you to everybody for doing that. Been a huge success again this year, as it always is. So big thanks to everybody for doing that. Still got plenty of time to do Chris shopping at Amazon, of course. Several weeks until Christmas, but yeah, it's there if you need it. So we get on with the video then, and we're going to start off with the situation over the weekend, as I said. So this is the GFS chart for Saturday, when we're seeing an area of low pressure just down to the southwest of the country. It doesn't look all that much at that point. This is 6 o'clock in the evening on Saturday. But if you go through to 6 o'clock in the morning on Sunday, 12 hours on, just look how that low pressure has deepened. It's become a major feature there down to the south of the country. There's very tight-packed ice bars wrapped around that, so risk of strong to gale force easterly winds across southern parts of the country, and also some very heavy rain. Now, this is coming to quite cold air. If this was a month or so on, it could potentially have given fairly widespread snow. It's a little bit too early for that, but it is coming to quite cold air, so some parts of Wales, possibly the northwest Midlands, might get a little bit of snow on the leading edge of this system. I think it's been mainly at elevation, but don't rule out the chance of a little bit coming down to lower levels. This is up to midday Sunday, and the low pressure then is across East Anglia and South East England. Again, very strong winds wrapped around that low pressure, so proper windy, wet, cold day really for many parts of the country on Sunday. I haven't really had many storms so far this autumn, but this was a proper autumnal early winter type storm with gales, heavy rain, perhaps a little bit of snow on the leading edge. Whether this gets named by the UK Met Office, I think it probably will do. So keep an eye out for that. May turn up in the papers in the next day or so as a named storm. By 6 o'clock in the evening on Sunday, that low pressure is heading off into the North Sea, leaves us still with this strong and cold northerly wind. And then as we go through into Monday, we do it all over again with another area of low pressure beginning to push up from the south. This one coming a bit further north. The ice bars aren't quite as tightly packed this, so not quite as windy, but again there will be potential for a lot of heavy rain. That's the GFS. This is the ECMWF. It's a bit further south with the area of low pressure. Here it is at midnight on Sunday, just off the coast of France at that point, so it's a little bit further south with the low pressure. But by the time we go through to midnight on Monday, we find the low pressure is in the North Sea. So presumably it has moved up something like that. So in the end, it takes a very similar path to what we see from the GFS, maybe a little bit further south, which might bring that northern edge and wintry potential perhaps a little bit further south. But again, I think you'll also need elevation to get any wintry potential on the northern edge of this system. And then again, ECM does it all over again on Monday into Tuesday with another low pressure coming up from the south, again bringing a lot of very wet weather in across England. Well, so this looks like a really wet spell over the weekend and into the start of next week. This is a precipitation forecast from theweatheroutlook.com. You can find the link to Weather Outlook on the links page. So this is for 6 o'clock in the evening on Saturday. wintry showers in the north and west, but otherwise mostly dry. Saturday's not going to be too bad, actually. I probably made it sound like it's going to be a complete washout of the weekend. Going to be very much a weekend of two halves. Saturday won't be too bad. It'll be quite cold, but there'll be a lot of sunshine. Showers mostly restricted to coast. I mean, it's Saturday night into Sunday that the weather really goes downhill. So 6 o'clock in the evening on Saturday, winter showers mostly around the western coast. You see that area of blue and green down to the southwest. That's the wet weather waiting in the wings. Now, as we move through Saturday evening, so this is up to midnight on Sunday, you see it's turning wet across the south coast. Otherwise, mostly dry. Northern parts of the country will be frosty, Scotland, northern England. And then we move through into the early hours of Sunday. And some very wet weather. Notice the green and yellow colours there pushing into the south. There is a little bit of snow on the leading edge across parts of Wales. Again, I think particularly at elevation. As we go through into 6 o'clock in the morning on Sunday, that area of snow just gets a little bit more widespread across Wales. Again, I don't think it's going to be much down across the south of Wales, particularly around the coast, but come inland and go, let's say go up into the mountains, particularly the Welsh mountains, there could be a bit of a snow event taking place there at 6 o'clock in the morning. But really, the main thing with this system is rain. Very, very wet across much of England and Wales, and very strong winds, as we've already seen as well. It could be up to gale force. Pause with rain through the course of Sunday morning. Again, a little bit of snow there through the northwest Midlands and down into Wales. Further eastwards through the Midlands, East Anglia, Lincolnshire, South Eastern England. Just looks very, very wet indeed. And that continues on through Sunday morning. So I think there could be over an inch of rain here with this across parts of the Midlands, Southern and East England. Most certainly an inch of rain is not out of the question. It all starts to ease off through the course of Sunday afternoon, but still the suggestion that it's raining in the east and perhaps still a bit of a wintry mix left across parts of northern England and down into Wales. It finally eases off then as we go into the early hours of Monday. Very things are calming down, but through Monday itself, the next system, we already saw it on the charts, pushing up, and that brings more really wet weather back into southern parts of the country, much of England and Wales actually, by the end of Monday. So when it's all said and done, taking weekend and Monday into account, wouldn't be at all surprised if a couple of inches of rain, maybe more, is falling across southern parts of the country over around 2 or 3 days, and that will bring with it the prospect of some localised flooding as well. The caveat with this is that the low pressure is being trended a little bit further south. We saw it on the east end of the UF, and the GFS is also beginning to trend this just a little bit further south. So it may be that in the next 24 hours this low pressure will be trended further south. Of course, if it's trending too far south, it's going to miss us. I don't think we'll have that, but it may be that the rain won't get quite as far north over the weekend. We'll have to wait and see, and I'll keep you updated on it. Right, let's get on with the next week to 10 days next. So these are 500 millibar height anomaly flow charts. We've got the ECMWF here on the top, and the GFS is on the bottom. 500 millibars, 80,000 feet is an area in the atmosphere. High pressure, low pressure, being trapped by jet stream running above. Red extrapolates high pressure, blue to low pressure. This takes up to a week to 10 days, so we go up to 27th of November with this. We've got above average heights over into the west of the country with the ECMWF. Also extending towards the south of Greenland, and the flow is probably going something a bit like that. So we're almost on the cold side of the jet, but not quite. Very anticyclonic influences. So after all that rain, I think the second half of next week probably finds high pressure becoming increasingly dominant again. And so it turns drier, but it's probably going to be quite cold. I wouldn't be at all surprised if there's a risk of night frost and fog later on next week. The GFS very similar, but it has a high pressure a bit further north, so it's actually centred to the north of Scotland, going up towards the 27th of November. The trough of low pressure is to the south, and we're more or less bringing a direct easterly through the country. Now, you probably think that's quite cold, but won't be that cold because the air is actually originating from the south and then doing something a bit like that. So most of Europe is turning quite mild next week, and we will, if we get these easy winds, we will import those milder upper air temperatures in across the country, albeit easy wind is going to be quite cold, dank and nasty really at this time of year, but not overly cold. We aren't tapping into an Arctic source of air with this easily if it comes off. The GFS temperature precipitation anomalies are looking like this. So the upper air temperatures are going a bit below average through the rest of this week. And then we get through into weekend and next week, and we get a bit of a tick up in those upper air temperatures. That's associated with all this rainfall coming up over weekend and into next week. Then beyond that, there is a lot of scatter actually through to the start of December. So that's the end of November through the start of December from this point just here. And there are several fairly mild members of the GFS ensembles. Also several really quite cold members. These are going really cold, some of these members. I think they are bringing down northerly or easterly winds. They are outliers, but don't rule out the chance as you get through to the very end of the month into the start of December, we might tap in something significantly cold. It looks fairly cool anyway, but we might tap into something significantly colder right at the end of the month in the start of December. Precipitation, so that's all the rainfall that's coming up over the weekend and in start of next week. Beyond that, looks like we have a drying trend taking place. These are the temperature anomalies. So next week, this goes from the 17th through 25th of November, more or less cooler than average, particularly so for the north, nearer normal further south, but I think the majority of the country there is actually slightly cold on average, and fairly substantially cold on average actually across Scotland. Precipitation anomalies look significantly drier than average for Scotland and Northern Ireland and wetter than average for England and Wales. That just tells you the topsy-turvy nature of the weather at the moment, and particularly over the weekend where we have all the rain down in the south and Scotland stays mainly out of trouble. So just have a look at next week's 10 days. This is the GFS. This is the old view from weathercentral.d, the newer charts. For some reason I couldn't get the newer charts up when I was getting the charts together. So this is the old view from WeatherCentral. We can still see what's going on. We're very used to these charts. Anyway, so this is Monday with GFS. We have the first low pressure, that storm coming up over the weekend in the southern or in the northern North Sea, just south of Norway. Next low pressure is through the Bay of Biscay. That is heading in that direction. So as we go through to Tuesday, 6 o'clock in the morning on Tuesday, very wet weather pushing up from the south again, and this one going further north as well. We get through into Wednesday, and that trough is still over the country. It's elongated, so it's weakening, but probably still bringing a lot of cloud and maybe little bits and pieces of rain as well. Notice high pressure is out to the north and west. And then that high pressure sort of builds through the country as we go into the latter stages of the week. So we saw it on the height anomaly chart. The GFS has the high pressure centred just to the north of Scotland. Got low pressure down to the south. The winds are in from the east. It's quite a strong easterly wind. Looks like it should be cold. But instead of the air originating from there and pulling down into the east, what's actually happening is that the air is originating from around here, around Italy, and then arriving on our shores as an easterly wind. So it won't be overly cold with that, but it will probably be very cloudy, very dank, probably drizzly bits, pieces of rain, and feeling cold anyway, particularly so on the east coast. Pretty dismal weather, I would have thought. Scotland is a bit different there. It's probably frosty and foggy. And then beyond that, in towards the final weekend of November, so Saturday 26th through to day 10, which is Sunday 27th. More or less the same idea, really. High pressure dominating to the north, low pressures down to south. We're bringing in those easterly winds. If anything, that wind is turning a bit colder at that point. Yeah, it's beginning to come more from that kind of direction as opposed to doing something like that. So I will assume as we get through to the final weekend of November, we are in this pattern. It will be turning colder with those easterly winds, possibly cold enough to bring some wintry showers onto the east coast by then. The east area finally then, so there's that low pressure in the North Sea. That gives us the nasty spell, Saturday into Sunday. Next low pressure is waiting down to the south. We move beyond that into Tuesday. The next low pressure is coming up across England and Wales, bringing another big mass of heavy rain to many parts of the country. Wednesday into Thursday finds a high pressure gradually building through the country, so less of an easterly wind with that, which means there's probably less cloud and the high pressure more centrally located. So I would have thought that implies frost and fog, really, through the second half of next week. With so much rain coming up over the weekend, in the start of next week, could be a lot of fog, actually, in that sort of pattern. And that takes us into the end of next week as well, with that high pressure very much dominating. Up to day 10, which is Sunday 27th of November, we find the high pressure pulling back out into central Atlantic again. Low pressure is around Iceland. Be interesting if we could run on another 24 hours with this. I suspect what would happen is this high pressure will go north, that low pressure will come south, and the upshot is that it would probably start turning the winds into the north at the very end of November, which could bring a proper pulse of cold air down across the country for the final days of November and into the start of December as well. So it looks like we're going to have a very wet weekend in the south and early next week as well. Beyond that, probably looking at high pressure building in. Now, if high pressure is centrally located through the second half of next week, expect frost and fog. If high pressure is to the north, as the GFS wants it, then we've got to be thinking more about easterly winds, which won't be overly cold, but probably bringing a lot of cloud, a lot of damp, dreary, and quite nasty weather, particularly to the eastern part of the country. And then going through to day 10, the hints are still there that we might bring down some significantly colder air right at the very end of November. Time is ticking on that. I've been talking about it through most of the month, expecting a proper cold shot before the end of November. There's still just time that we might get it, but as I say, time is ticking on that. But the hints are still there at around day 9, day 10, so we'll wait and see what happens with that. It's JMA Friday tomorrow, so we'll have the month-end look ahead with the Japanese model, so come back for that. But that's all for now, and thanks for watching.